Welcome back in, everyone. Welcome back to some college baseball talk. And it's time for the College World Series. One of the greatest sporting events in the country is happening. All 8 teams have punched their ticket to Omaha. So, first, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little super regional recap, see how these teams got to this point, and then we will make our picks and predictions. We'll look at the Friday games and also the Saturday games that will be kicking off this College World Series for the 2023 season. So by the end of this, we will know who my pick will be for the national championship. So let's get right into it. Let's start off with the Super Regional recap. Let's start off in the Winston-Salem Super Regional. And I think that everybody who knows and watches college baseball saw this coming. Wake Forest won the series 2-0, and it came pretty easily. Game one, it was 5-4. Alabama, Wake Forest was the first team to punch, and then Alabama was able to punch right back. I think that Alabama's pitching staff served well in game number one. The Rays did a good job. But in game two, Wake Forest put up 22 runs. Yes, 22 runs in game number two to punch their ticket for the first time since the 1955 season. And last time that they were in Omaha in that 1955 season, they did win the national championship. So we will see if Wake Forest can break the curse. The number one overall national seed hasn't won the tournament since the 1999 season. The Miami Hurricanes did it. So this was a pretty easy regional. They're called Wake Forest for a reason, and their bats showed up. Their pitching staff is one of the country. They have 4 pitchers that can be an ace on any roster. So this is going to be a team that's going to be scary, and they're going to be in bracket number 2, as you can see there that we're going to be looking at bracket 1. You have 4 teams in that side. And in bracket number 2, you have 4 teams on the other side. So the next super regional that we're going to be looking at is the Gainesville Super Regional. And this was another sweep. This was our first of 2 all SEC matchup. You had the number 2 overall national seed Florida versus the number 15 overall national seed South Carolina. And Florida's pitching dominated South Carolina. We saw in the Columbia Regional that South Carolina's bats got hot. Ethan Petrie, one of their superstars, was really shut down in this series. You saw Sproat in game number 1, and you got to tip your cap to Hurston Waldrop, the Southern Miss transfer that decided to take his talents to Gainesville this season. So Florida goes back to Omaha for the first time since the 2018 season and knocks out their SEC East foe in the South Carolina Gamecocks. Let's go on down to the Stanford Super Regional, where Stanford ended up winning this series 2-1. Stanford was up big in the first game, and then Texas had that 6-run ninth inning that really vaulted them to the game 1 win. And then Stanford, Quinn Matthews took the mound, and he pitched 156 pitches. That is just insane. We usually see that in softball all the time, but in baseball, we hardly see it. In the 90s, Skip Bertman always used to pitch his guys in depth. So Stanford pulled that trick out of their hat. It worked out for them. They won game number 2 to even up the series and take this game to 3 games. But Texas and Stanford that they had in game number 3. Stanford got out to an early 3-0 lead. They were up 6-3 at one point. Texas stormed all the way back to tie the game at 6. And then in the 9th inning, if you did not see this was probably one of the most heartbreaking losses. Stanford had runners on third and first with 2 outs, and Stanford's guy hit a pop-up, which should have been caught, but Texas, their outfield, just could not see it in the lights, and Stanford knocks off Texas 7-6 to send the Longhorns back to Austin and Stanford back to Omaha. This is, I believe, the 4th consecutive trip that Stanford is making the trip to the College World Series. So we see the Cardinal back in the field of 8. The next super regional that we'll be looking at is the Virginia and Duke regional. And Duke won game number 1, but Virginia game number 2, game number 3 pretty convincingly. Their offense, I knew that their offense was going to carry them back to Omaha. They won game number 2, 14-4. In game number 3, they put up 10 runs. The Blue Devils. The Blue Devils pitching just didn't have enough. Virginia's pitching, on the other hand, they had some quality starts, but their bats are what's going to carry them far in this tournament. So we see the Cavaliers back in Omaha, and that was the first time since the 2021 season. The next super regional that we're looking at, we'll run through both of these pretty quickly so that we can get to the field of 8. I know that everyone is waiting for that. So the Baton Rouge Super Regional featured another SEC versus SEC matchup. We saw the 5 seed LSU take on number 12 seed Kentucky, and LSU out of the gates flex their muscles. They did have to wait, quote unquote weather delay that delayed this one, but LSU fans would rather have a 9 o'clock start than having a 2 o'clock start. This night game at the box just hit different. So LSU in game number 1, 14-0, had 6 home runs in that game. That is just prototypical LSU offense. Game number 2 was pretty close. Kentucky got the leadoff home run, but LSU behind K. Beloso's home run to put them up 4-1. Kentucky was able to get some more solo shots, but LSU was able to seal the deal, especially with that Dylan Cruz 2 RBI double that really sealed the deal. And LSU is back in Omaha, first time since the 2017 season. We'll see the purple and gold faithful take over that stadium. And then the next one, we see Oral Roberts versus Oregon, and Oral Roberts ended up winning the series 2-1. And the first game was absolutely crazy. Oral Roberts was up 8-0. They had a commanding lead in this one, but Oregon fought their way back and walked off Oral Roberts 9-8. That was the first time in postseason history that anyone has led up an 8-0 victory. But Oral Roberts was able to respond. They won game number 2. They didn't stop there. They won game number 3 as well. Game number 2 was crazy. Oral Roberts hit a walk-off double. It was over the fence, over the foul fence as well. So that was a ground rule double, and Oral Roberts was able to seal the victory. And game number 3 was a back-and-forth battle. I feel like this was probably the best super regional of the weekend. These were 2 quality teams, but Oral Roberts, a 4 seed. We'll see if they can become the first 4 seed since that Fresno State team with Aaron Judge back in the 2008 season. So we will see if Oral Roberts can get it done. All right, the moment that we've all been waiting for, let's talk about the field of 8. So you see in bracket 1, will be starting on Friday. You have the 4 seed Oral Roberts. You have TCU. Shoot, did I forget to talk? Yeah, I did forget to talk about 2 more regionals. Sorry about that. I got a little bit ahead of myself. But Tennessee and Southern Miss, we had that debacle of who's going to host. It ended up being Hattiesburg Regional. Game number 1, Southern Miss got the victory. But Tennessee, let's talk about game number 2 because this is where really the super regional flipped. Southern Miss was up 4-0. They had 2 bombs, one by Dustin Dickerson and then the other by Christopher Sargent. But Tennessee's offense put up a 6 spot. And I feel like at that point, Tennessee took the series. And game number 3, they're pitching with Drew Beam, Chase Burns. He closed the deal for them. And Tennessee is back in Omaha. We expected them to be in Omaha last year. We kind of expected them to be in Omaha this year. They were the preseason number 2 overall, national seed. Early this season, they didn't, look as the part, but now they are looking the part as well. So we see the Volunteers back in Omaha. And the final super regional that take place was TCU and Indiana State. This was pretty, TCU handled their business. Indiana State, they had the pitching, but they just didn't have the offense to compete with a red-hot TCU team. So we see the Horned Frogs. They are going to be a side in everyone's thorn, especially in bracket number 1. So like I was saying, bracket 1 starts off on Friday. You have Oral seed. TCU is the 2. Florida is the number 1 seed. I know that they're the number 2 seed, but Virginia is the 7th national seed. So we see 2 national seeds. We see a 4 and a 2 in this bracket. Bracket number 2, we pretty much have chalk in this one. Stanford's the national seed. Wake Forest, the number 1 overall national seed. LSU's the 5. Tennessee is the 2. Bracket 2 will get underway on Saturday. So since bracket 1 starts on Friday, let's start with those games. So your first game of the day is Oral Roberts versus TCU. So these are 2 red-hot teams. Oral Roberts is a team of destiny. They have shown that their offensive firepower is here to stay. They put up a lot of runs in the Stillwater Regional and in the Oregon Regional. I know that they got out to that 8-0 lead. They showed their dominance. Their pitching staff is what's going to really be the question mark for them. Going up against the TCU offense, that has been absolutely raking the baseball ever since the Big 12 tournament. They won the Big 12 championship. I feel like this TCU team really just flipped the switch whenever they were in the Big 12 championship and then it made it all the way to Omaha. So it's pretty much pick your poison between two of these red hot teams. I am going to go with TCU though. I feel like I've been the lone guy that hasn't picked Oral Roberts. I've been rooting for this team, but I just don't see anyone stopping this TCU team. Indiana State wasn't able to. Arkansas, I mean, they went into Fayetteville, Arkansas. I mean, and Baumwalker Stadium is one of the most hostile environments in the country, and they were able to storm their way. It wasn't even close. I mean, if you watch those two games, they put up 22 in the first game, and they put up 14 in the other one. So this TCU team is just scary good. I think that they go 1-0 to start, and Oral Roberts goes 0-1 to start as well. So we have Virginia and Florida. These are two national seeds vying for it. You'll probably see both of these aces. Game number one, I would not be shocked if we see every ace in this one. I mean, you have to go 1-0 in Omaha. The first game is as important as the second game. The second game, if you win that one, you're in the driver's seat, and the team has to beat you twice to knock you out and not send you to the championship series. This is pretty easy for me. I know I've been high on Virginia, but Florida is just a team of, they are a very solid team. Their offense is starting to play really good. They got Jack Caggs out there. They got Wyatt Langford, two of the best players in the country. Virginia can rake the baseball. If they can get to Sproat in this one, then, get to Florida's bullpen. I think that this is where the Cavaliers can really knock off the Gators. But I think that Florida, I'm really going with all chalk here so far. I'm going to go with the Gators to move to 1-0. So now we have Oral Roberts and Virginia in the elimination game, and I'm going to do it. I'm sorry, Oral Roberts fans, but I think that Oral Roberts, their run is going to end pretty quickly. I think they go 0-2 in the barbecue to send Virginia to 1-1, and Oral Roberts is going to go to 0-2. So Virginia is going to be 1-1. They're going to be awaiting the loser of the TCU Florida game, and I'm going to pick Florida to beat TCU in this one. Hurston Waldrop, we just saw him dominate against South Carolina's offense. I think that he's built for these type of moments. So I think that the Gators are going to be in the driver's seat. They're going to go to 2-0, and TCU and Virginia are going to face off against each other. And man, this is going to be a really tough battle. Virginia is going to be on their third. They're going to be on their both teams Sunday starter. They're both at 1-1. This is going to be their third game in the tournament. I'm going to go with Virginia in this one. I do think that their offense is going to ultimately knock off TCU in this one. I do think that TCU is going to be one of those teams that is going to be a thorn in their side. But I just think that Virginia is going to send them packing. And we're going to have Florida and Virginia again. This is pretty easy once again. I just think that Florida is really set up in this bracket. I know that TCU is playing hot. Oral Roberts is the team of destiny. Virginia is looking really good. But Florida's pitching, I think, is the best pitching staff, well-rounded in this bracket, number one. So I think that Florida is going to sweep through bracket one and advance their ticket to the national championship series and await the winner of whoever comes out of bracket number two. So with that, let's go on to bracket number two. Stanford, Wake Forest, Tennessee, LSU. Stanford and Wake Forest is the early afternoon game on Saturday. I think that Stanford, if they definitely pitch Quinn Matthews in this one, I know he's coming off 333 pitches between the regional and the super regional play. He pitched 156 in the super regional. I think that Stanford's pitching could definitely give Wake Forest offense some troubles. Wake Forest is obviously going to throw their ace. I just feel like this is also easy. Wake Forest is just one of the best teams in the country. You could throw out that narrative. The number one seed hasn't won since 1999. I think that this Wake Forest team is definitely built to win it all with their pitching staff, with their high-powered offense. I do think that Wake Forest will go 1-0 and send Stanford to 0-1. And now we have another SEC versus SEC matchup. Our 10 teams in the tournament, we just knew that this was bound to happen, especially in Omaha. We see 3 SEC teams in the field of 8. So we have Tennessee and LSU. Both of these teams did meet back early in the season. LSU took 2 out of 3. And, the 2 first games were close. LSU got that clutch base hit by Jordan Thompson to win game 1. and got the close by Griffin Herring in game number 2. And Tennessee flexed their muscle in game number 3. They won pretty convincingly in this one. So this could be the ultimate tiebreaker in this one if Tennessee were able to get the deal. So LSU will throw Paul Skeens. We'll see if Tennessee goes with Dolander in this one or stick with Lindsey in the quote-unquote Friday night role. But I know that this game is Saturday. So I think that LSU with Paul Skeens on the mound, you got to go with them. Paul Skeens has been very dominant. He's going after Big McDonald's strikeout record, I think, with 2 more starts. So he could definitely get that. He needs 15 more to break the record, 14 to tie. I think that's going to be a very, very close game. These are 2 evenly matched teams. This is going to be a back-and-forth battle. But I do think that the way that LSU has been playing as of late, Tennessee's been playing hot as well. They went through the Clemson Regional pretty quickly and then also got through Southern Miss. But I will go with LSU. I do think that the Tigers get this victory. And so we had the losers bracket game, Stanford versus Tennessee. I think this is going to be another quick one for Stanford, especially if Dolander doesn't go against LSU. I think that you got to go Dolander against Stanford. And I'm going to go with Tennessee in this one. I just don't think that Tennessee is a team that's going to feel like a 0-2 team in Omaha. I think that Stanford, they really have been a solid team. They showed in the regional, they showed in the super regional that this could be a team that can play. But bracket 2 is absolutely stacked with talent. So I think that you got to send at least one team home, and I'm going to send Stanford. They're going to go 0-2. So Tennessee now moves to 1-1, and Wake Forest, LSU in the 2-0 game. I do think that advantage here is Wake Forest's pitching. LSU's Ty Floyd has been shaky at times. I'm going to go with, this pick. I'm going to go with LSU in this one. I do think that they go 2-0. I think that Wake Forest gets their first punch in the mouth. Their postseason play, they haven't really been punched in the mouth. I do think that this will be the first time, but we will see this Wake Forest team back. As I do think that Wake Forest will ultimately knock off Tennessee and send the Volunteers packing. So we see Wake Forest and LSU. I do think that Wake Forest comes back and beats LSU, but then LSU in game number 2 that decides it all, who goes to the championship series. I'm going to take the Tigers to move on to the championship series. So we have a rematch from the 2017 season, Florida versus LSU, an all SEC battle for the national championship. We saw Mississippi State 2 years ago win it all. Ole Miss was the national champion. So I think that this is going to be a 3-game series. Florida and LSU are pretty evenly matched teams. And Paul Skeens versus Sproat is going to be an interesting matchup if we see it. And then after that, I think that Florida has the advantage. So I think that LSU will take game number 1 in the national championship series. Florida will get game number 2. And then LSU will be the national champions and beat the Gators in 3. So let me know in the comments your predictions of who you have winning the national championship in the College World Series. And that is going to be it for our college baseball talk. So hope you enjoyed everything from the regionals, super regionals, now and the College World Series. With that, hope everyone has a good week, and we'll see you here next time.